The barbell suddenly felt heavier than anything I had ever lifted, not because of the weight, but because she was standing in front of me, looking over her shoulder with a smile that made me forget every word I knew. "You can come closer," she said softly, and for a second, the entire gym seemed to disappear. The music, the clanging weights, the conversations around us, all of it faded. There was only her, me, and the strange feeling that one small moment could change everything. Before we continue, if stories about unexpected connections, second chances, and moments that touch the heart mean something to you, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who enjoys emotional stories, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. You never know when one simple story might remind someone that they are worthy of being seen, valued, and loved. Her name was Emily. I had noticed her almost 6 months earlier at the same neighborhood gym, but I had never imagined she would notice me. She always arrived around 7 in the evening, wearing simple workout clothes, headphones around her neck, and carrying a water bottle covered in tiny stickers. She was focused, disciplined, and somehow confident without ever trying to attract attention. I admired that about her. I also admired the way she encouraged beginners when they struggled with an exercise, even though she barely knew them. I was the opposite. I kept to myself. I went to the gym after work, lifted weights, ran on the treadmill, and went home. I wasn't shy exactly, but after a difficult breakup 2 years earlier, I had stopped believing that anyone could genuinely choose me. My ex had left after telling me that I was too ordinary, too quiet, and too predictable. Those words had stayed with me much longer than I wanted to admit. So when Emily occasionally smiled at me, I convinced myself it meant nothing. Then one rainy Thursday evening, everything changed. The gym was unusually crowded because of the weather. I was finishing a set when Emily walked toward me. She removed one earbud and asked if I could spot her on the bench press. My heart immediately started racing, but I tried to act normal. I followed her to the bench and stood nearby as she adjusted the weights. When she lay back, she looked up at me and smiled. I moved behind the bench, leaving what I thought was a respectful distance. She raised an eyebrow and whispered that I could come closer. I stepped forward. She laughed quietly and told me she wasn't going to bite. I smiled, embarrassed, and told her I was just trying not to make her uncomfortable. Her expression changed for a moment. She looked at me seriously and said that she trusted me, which was why she had asked me. Those simple words hit harder than they should have. I had spent years thinking people tolerated me rather than trusted me. Hearing her say it so naturally made something inside me loosen. She began her set. I kept my hands close without touching the bar, ready to help only if she needed it. She completed the first few repetitions easily, but near the end, the weight slowed. Her arms began shaking. I stepped closer, ready to assist. She pushed through one more repetition, then another, until she finally racked the bar. She sat up, breathing heavily, and looked at me with a grin. She thanked me, then asked why I always looked so serious. I laughed and admitted that I didn't know. She said she had been watching me for months and thought I was always carrying some invisible weight. That sentence stayed with me. I asked what made her think that. She shrugged and said sometimes people could see sadness even when someone was smiling. For the first time, I told her the truth. I explained that I had stopped trusting relationships after my breakup and had become convinced that being alone was safer than being disappointed. I expected her to offer some meaningless encouragement. Instead, she listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She simply listened. Then she told me something about herself. Her father had passed away the previous year, and for months she had blamed herself for not visiting him more often. She had buried herself in work and exercise because silence made the grief louder. She said the gym had become the one place where she could feel strong enough to face another day. Suddenly, I understood why she seemed so disciplined. She wasn't trying to become stronger because she hated weakness. She was trying to survive it. After that night, our conversations became routine. Sometimes we trained together. Sometimes we grabbed coffee afterward. She learned that I hated protein shakes but drank them anyway. I learned that she loved old movies and cried during emotional endings even when she pretended not to. Slowly, without either of us planning it, the gym became more than a place where we worked out. It became the place where two lonely people found each other. But just when I started believing that something beautiful might be happening, Emily stopped coming. 1 day passed. Then 3. Then an entire week. I tried not to worry, telling myself she was busy. But on the 7th evening, I saw her walking into the gym with a completely different expression. She looked exhausted. She told me her mother had been diagnosed with a serious illness and that she had been spending most of her time at home helping her family. She apologized for disappearing. I told her she never needed to apologize for taking care of someone she loved. She looked at me for several seconds and asked why I was always so kind to her. I wanted to give her a clever answer. Instead, I told her the truth. Because you matter to me. Her eyes filled with tears. She stepped closer and said that she had been hoping I would say that. Then she admitted that the day she first asked me to spot her, she wasn't really afraid of the weight. She was afraid I would say no. She had noticed me for months too. She had seen the way I avoided conversations, the way I looked down whenever she smiled, and the way I always left immediately after training. She had wanted to know me but didn't know how to approach someone who seemed determined to remain invisible. That moment completely changed the way I saw myself. I had spent years believing I was forgettable. But someone had been noticing me all along. Emily reached for my hand, and I held hers. There was no dramatic music, no perfect sunset, no movie-like confession. Just two imperfect people standing inside an ordinary gym, realizing that sometimes love begins quietly. Months later, we still trained together. Sometimes she spotted me. Sometimes I spotted her. We joked about who lifted more and argued over which coffee shop made the best drinks. But every once in a while, when I was struggling with a difficult set, she would stand behind me and say, "You can come closer. I've got you." And I understood that she wasn't talking about the weights anymore. She was telling me that I didn't have to carry everything alone. Maybe that is what we all need sometimes, not someone to save us, but someone willing to stand close enough to remind us that we are not alone. If this story touched your heart, please support the video with a like, share it with someone who may need to hear this message, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach people who might be quietly fighting their own battles. And before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment, "I've got you," if you believe everyone deserves someone who stays when life becomes difficult. Because sometimes the person standing beside you isn't just there to help you lift something heavy. Sometimes they are there to remind you that your heart is still capable of hope. And sometimes, the most beautiful second chance begins with nothing more than a simple question: "Can you spot me?"